For our last plenary session, we're extremely proud to be unveiling a new publication from the Center for Sustainable Business, The Practitioner's Guide to Embedding Sustainability. It's my pleasure to introduce my colleague, Chisara Ehiemere, our senior research lead for ROSI at CSB and co-author of the guide along with Tansi. Chisara has 20 years of experience as a sustainable sourcing consultant and strategist, helping companies and trade associations implement sustainable strategies into their supply chain. So welcome, Chisara.
It's not on. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? Okay. I have a tough act. Oh, louder? Is that better? Okay. So yes, I am standing between you and a coffee break, but it's been a really great day so far, talking about a lot of rich information that we are now going to transition into talking about how to embed some of the concepts that we've heard about and sustainability overall into a guide for practitioners. This is a body of work that Tansi Whalen and I have been involved in over the last year or so, and we're really excited to bring that all to you today. So why produce an embedded sustainability guide, you may be wondering. And so in many of the engagements that we have, either with existing research partners, with potential research partners, we have a lot of questions around how to exactly understand and address sustainability risks and opportunities, particularly considering that oftentimes there's inadequate background within companies. Companies may or may not have been tracking sustainability investments from the very beginning, and oftentimes then will not have the data available or in the right place to be able to get the benefits from sustainability. And so the opportunity is a guide that provides a step-by-step guidance on how to build a sustainability strategy, and you'll have the opportunity to hear from Tansi Whalen after the break, if that's an area that you're interested in. We also talk about culture, something that is a very important part of sustainability to employees, but then also to being able to achieve the goals that you have set for yourself within companies. And then we'll also talk about governance and reporting and communication, which ties back to some of the information that we heard earlier this morning. We have case examples within the guide, and these are really important because we want it to be able to recognize and draw from research information that exists in other parts of other industries, across functions, to be able to have this one place that you can link to if you're in the process of attempting to embed sustainability within your company. Finally, we have a section that is focused on an analysis of some of the common barriers that companies face in embedding sustainability. And these are, again, practical questions that have come up where you'll see when I present that slide, just really key, how we know what we should be doing, but how do we actually go about getting that done? And then finally, we have a maturity model, which you'll be able to link to, and you can go in and answer a series of questions that will give you an indication of the level of embeddedness, if that is a word, of sustainability within your company. This is also something that could be useful for investors. The data and the questions oftentimes will go into details that may not be readily at an investor's fingertips, but again, it could be also a very useful tool for that. So, what is embedded sustainability? You'll see here, and I won't read the full definition through to you, but what's really important here is the proactive management of material sustainability issues and a balanced approach to the needs of stakeholders. And when we talk about stakeholders, we're including shareholders in that definition, and then also to completely and effectively integrate those into a company's business strategies. In fact, in some cases, we have found that the sustainability strategy and the corporate strategy are one and the same. And we have some examples of that. And then we also think that it's really important to understand that the goal is to create positive societal value as well as better financial returns. Oftentimes those are decoupled, but we have seen good evidence that they work hand in hand and can work hand in hand when sustainability is embedded. One of the reasons, or the most important reason for embedding sustainability core to business strategy is that it represents a new wave of total quality management, and it really allows companies to identify and mitigate environmental, social, and governance risks. You'll see ESG, but all of those areas, which include social issues, socioeconomic, and environmental issues as well. It allows for the identification of growth and innovation opportunities as well. And so we found in our research that many companies are looking at sustainability risks, and oftentimes, though, they're not seeing where the opportunities lie. And so that's where some of the work that we've done with ROSI falls. Then we also have identification of operational efficiencies, opportunities to unlock sales and customer loyalty. Something else that has been mentioned today briefly, attracting and retaining talent, which is extremely important. We have some data on that as well. Stakeholder relations, and then finally, positive media coverage and reputation. So all of these are reasons to embed sustainability core to business strategy, and those who are familiar with the ROSI framework will recognize that these are the mediating factors that are associated with ROSI. Okay, I won't go through all of the pictures here, but this is just to give you an example of the breadth of industries that we looked at. So we have some examples on stakeholder management from Goodyear, so looking at tires. And we have information from Unilever, Sustainalytics, when we're looking at the link between ESG pay and for senior management. We also look at some information from Arca Continental, who generously supported this work. I omitted to say at the beginning, and looking at some of their board composition and the structures of the board committees that they put in place to be able to support that governance structure. And then we've also looked at some of the papers that we have authored here at NYU CSB. So the 4 steps that we identified, as I said earlier, first starting off with designing your corporate strategy, creating a culture of sustainability, governance and organizational structure, and then finally dealing with communications and reporting. So talking about not green hushing, but talking about what your company is doing. So the first step, and there are 8 steps with the corporate strategy. The first is determining the material ESG factors for the company, and so this would be a materiality assessment. I was surprised to find out with some data that was collected by KPMG in a study that showed that of the top 100 companies from 58 regions, that over 70 and only over 70%, sorry, just 70% of those companies were actually conducting a materiality assessment. I would have thought at this point that 100% of companies would have been collecting this information, but there are opportunities there. The second step is mapping and engaging stakeholders. And this is an opportunity to look for learning, collaboration, partnerships, which we've heard earlier are really important to being able to solve some of the global issues and global problems that we are faced with. The third is creating a materiality matrix, which is what is needed to be able to prioritize the different elements of the material issues for your company. And then step 4 is developing that sustainable business strategy. As I said earlier, in some cases, companies have gone as far, such as Unilever, gone as far as having their sustainability strategy and their corporate strategy be one and the same, which what some would say is best practice. As we heard earlier also, there was some backlash that they did face as a result of that, but it is something that really shows that effort of putting it forward and saying that that you stand by sustainability within your company. For step 5 here, it's developing the organization-wide KPIs, and this is where you're going beyond that checkbox approach of indicating, the existence of a policy or having hired someone, to really thinking through the problem that you're seeking to solve and figuring out what the appropriate KPIs are to being able to show that you've actually been able to solve that. Step 6 is the development and implementation of action plans for goals. And so this is where you're going from what you intend to do to looking through and planning for the resources and actually putting money behind the resources that are needed to meet those action plans, the activities, and understanding the timing. And number 7 is the identification and recruiting of partners and collaborators. And these could be NGOs, pre-competitive partnerships. We have examples there from the agriculture sector where we've looked at in coffee, for example, where companies have partnered on the ground with technical assistance providers and others to be able to deliver services to smallholder farmers, increasing money in their pockets, and at the same time increasing the quality of the products that they're producing, which helps the company in the long run as well. And then finally, and this is the area of research that I'm most intimately acquainted with, is understanding and tracking ROSI. And we heard from the panel earlier today that this is the area where companies typically are not collecting the data, are not aligning the sustainability information with understanding the value that is being created by the investments that they're making there. And so we will have 2 different sessions after I speak this afternoon on ROSI. One will be focused on circularity, if you're interested in that one, and then we also have sustainable sourcing by one of my colleagues, Elise. Now, the second section, and this was something that I found a lot of information, both saying that some of these measures are important, but then also some of them challenging the value of some of them, but ultimately ensuring that there is a vision and a mission and a purpose and company values that truly are aligned with sustainability, not having those conflicts exist. And so one vision statement that rang true, for example, for us was McCormick, which is a company that we've worked with on ROSI projects in the past. They state that their vision is a world that is united by flavor, where healthy, sustainable, and delicious go hand in hand. So in other words, making sure that they are delivering a quality product and at the same time making sure that that product is sustainable. And you may say these are words, but these words are really important when companies are making key decisions about whether, how to decide which way to go when they're thinking about investments in other areas. Another area that we see that's been really important is employee training, and so identifying areas. We've heard, well, our employees don't understand what it is that they need to do to be able to implement some of their sustainability strategies, and so we have a section that really digs into how to determine the types of training that your employees may need, and then also how to deliver that training. And so you'll see here one example that was mentioned earlier. KPMG has a partnership with NYU Stern and Cambridge University for education for its employees. A final area that I'll mention is this example here from Train Technologies, which is around understanding the importance of sustainability to your employees. And oftentimes we'll say, it's really important to be able to, if you're going to monetize the benefits of sustainability from a perspective of employees, do you have an employee survey that actually captures data around how your employees may value sustainability? Are they aware of what your company is doing in sustainability? And Train Technologies is one example of a company that we found to have a survey that they've instituted that's been really helpful in being able to understand and make changes along the way. Okay, final section 3 here now is governance and organizational structure. And in this area, we looked at board governance, and so we have some examples of sustainability committee structures, looking at that of Arca Continental, for example, and the way that they have aligned their board composition along with sustainability committees. We've also looked at capital allocation, understanding how executive compensation can be tied to results. I know that that can sometimes be a tricky one to discuss, but we have found that it works. And then also we've linked to a number of resources for practitioners who are interested in figuring out, okay, we've noticed, for example, we've looked at our board and we see that there are some improvements that can be made. How do we actually go about doing that? And so we have some links there. Another example here, and this was one that I was hoping that we'd be able to find, not necessarily a one-size-fits-all, but some kind of guidance on the best structure for companies to be able to utilize, to be able to fully unlock the value of sustainability. And what we found instead that it's not really the structure itself, it's what the structure is able to achieve. And so making sure that sustainability is in front of the CEO and has that prioritization and visibility, understanding how the company works, how decisions are made within the company, and then aligning the sustainability function to be able to work the way that the rest of the organization works, which may look very different depending on where you are and depending on the industry where you exist. Sustainability function has to have authority across departments and across function to be able to have that reach. Input is great, but authority is a lot better. And I'd be curious to hear afterwards at cocktails how many of you in sustainability feel that you have that authority, but it's important. And finally, and extremely important, we heard it earlier, is that buy-in from the finance function. We saw one case, and I don't know if it's still the case today, where we had a sustainability function. I think in this case it was temporarily reporting into finance, but that reporting structure absolutely incorporates that level of visibility that's needed for those discussions around capital allocation and understanding the return on sustainability investment. The final section here is on communications and reporting. Again, we don't want green hushing. We also don't want greenwashing. And so credible communications with investors, with suppliers, customers and consumers, and then also communicating with employees and making sure that employees are aware of the steps that are being taken, because many of them value that within the company. 70% is a number that we've heard. The last two sections, we have navigating barriers. And so some of the questions that we have are as basic as, I feel stuck in bureaucratic inertia. So we have all of this information, we report out every year, and yet I still feel that I'm not able to make the types of moves that I would like to be able to. And so we talk a little bit about that. Concern about setting aggressive public or even internal goals for fear of missing them. And so we have some information about that as well. But that was a really fun section to research and put together. And then finally, this is something that you will be able to connect to afterwards, and we will put up a code for you to go immediately to it. And it's a maturity model of sorts for embedded sustainability. So you'll be able to understand directionally how embedded sustainability is within your organization. We have questions from the 4 sections, and at the end you are either a beginner, an explorer, an integrator, or an embedder. And would also be curious to hear, after you've used that, any feedback on your experience and what you found. So with that, here is a code for you to connect. It's live now. And thank you all very much, and I hope that you'll enjoy reading the guide.